Well, welcome to the In Between podcast. Welcome back. This is episode 3, and we're glad to be back with you. Again, my name is Luke Littrell, worship pastor here. Cassidy Latham, Pastor Caesar's with us.
Not Latham.
Cassidy.
I've been married.
She's been married.
What is your last name?
Pendleton.
Sorry.
It's a
so
mouthful.
sorry.
She's
you
only
are
been married for like years.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Two and
Oh my
a few
gosh.
months.
You want to do it again?
Sure.
Okay.
No, I think that's perfect. We're
Well-
supposed to know each other, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like I've been your boss.
I know your middle name.
Yeah,
David.
they just found out my middle name.
No,
so.
I mean, I know it.
David. You know,
Lucas.
what's you have 900 names.
Excuse you. I've only got 4. Cesar Alejandro Arocha Ortiz. Because in Venezuela, you take both your mom and dad's.
Okay.
And then the middle name, Lady Gaga wrote a song, Alejandro.
Go ahead and sing it.
Was
No.
that after you?
I'll leave that to you. You're the
Okay.
worship pastor.
Oh, man.
You only listen to Christian music?
That's right.
Is that
I
what's going
only
on?
listen to Christian music. No Lady Gaga.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
that's one extreme or the other, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Talking about extremes.
Yes.
That's what we've been talking about over
Let's
the
talk
last
about
couple of
it.
weeks.
Let's talk about your Calibrate Part 2.
Yeah.
Talk to us about what it was about. If you missed it, it's a good recap that you can have.
Yeah, we've been talking through the importance of being balanced and being calibrated in your life, and that God created everything. And I think every one of us who are followers of Christ and disciples of Jesus, we would agree with that, right? We would say from the book of Colossians, where it said God created all things, and in Him all things hold together, which is a beautiful passage of Scripture. And so that means that our bodies were designed and created by God, for God, to bring God honor and praise and glory. And so what would it look like, right, if we were to actually honor God with our bodies, and not just, with on one given Sunday or a Wednesday, but actually throughout the week. And that's really what this podcast is all about, is keeping that conversation going, is so that it doesn't just sit in our minds for one day or maybe a few hours, and then we kind of get into Monday or Tuesday, and then we go back into the routine of things, but kind of recreating a new rhythm in our lives where we get to really apply that which we have heard, right? Otherwise, we're just information people who are just receiving it, and we're not really applying any of this. So yeah, it's all about honoring God with your body. And so we asked that question the first week, and then we moved to the eyes last week, which honestly, it generated a lot of conversations, especially even after service. I had quite a few meaningful discussions with people just talking through these things, right? There are some things that we can't, unsee. There's some things that are at the forefront of our minds because of what we have been exposed to. And then, of course, and then you have the culture on top of that is constantly bringing things to your eyes and even creating a lot of distractions. So it really generated some thoughts, and that's what we talked about in week 2. So we're kind of breaking the body down, right? So week 3, which something to look forward to, will be in regards to the ears, and who are you and what are you listening to? And it goes beyond just music,
right?
Lady Gaga. Or
it's a lot. It's a lot more than just music. It's about people that have influence in your life, the voices. In fact, I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. This Sunday, I am walking through a passage of Scripture that I have never preached out of in my whole life. I have read only a few times. In fact, I bet you that many of you watching and listening, you have not read through this passage or studied it, unless you have read through the Bible, maybe once or at some point in your life. So it'll be a really neat passage to dive in, and we're looking at the entire chapter. So we're going to be for about 3 hours on Sunday. I'm just kidding.
Old Testament.
Old Testament.
Nice.
Old Testament. Yeah. So we're going back to something that, again, was done so many years ago, and we can draw some incredible principles and learn so much from what to do and what not to do, right?
Nice.
Talk to us about the internet question. If you have a question, man, we want Pastor Caesar to hear you and answer that. A lot of the questions kind of get answered on Sunday morning when they come and talk to you after the message. But
Sure.
somebody had a question.
Yeah.
Read it to us.
Yeah, so someone asked, I understand what you were saying about guarding our eyes from seeing things, but what happens when we don't have a choice but to see things out of our control? For example, first responders, someone going through a traumatic situation out of their control, or military. How can we keep our soul and our mind from going to a dark place?
That's a great question. Whoever submitted that, that's a really good, because there are some things, as I mentioned, that we can't avoid, right? I mean, the easy portion of that question, as far as like, I looked, for guys, I looked at a girl and, she was there and I wasn't, like trying to, but I did. I always challenge guys, when you go back a second time, that's where the mistake is made, right? Kind of that second look, third look, or whatever. And then after that, slippery slope. However, there are certain things, maybe even a profession that causes you to be really, just scarred. And how do you can't avoid that. That's what you do. And I think the biggest thing is making sure that, and I think this will go back to a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Jesus doing such heavy ministry. In fact, you and I talked a little bit off air about this, because I feel like we at times are exposed to so many things that people go through in life that are really ugly and just messed up, and sin, right? Because of Genesis chapter 3 and evil in the world. Yeah. And so you have someone who's a fireman or a police officer who walks into a chaos situation. And I think if we begin to place all the blame on people, I think then we can create a slippery slope of just being angry and frustrated. When in reality, our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against darkness and principalities. Right. And the ruler, of this world, which is the enemy, who is trying to constantly, send us down really dark alleys. And so, again, I think a big part of this will be to, like Jesus did, right? That's the greatest example that we have, to make sure that we pull back at a certain point and rejuvenate, recharge after seeing something like that. I always encourage counseling. Listen, counseling is not just for those who are in a situation where, like, oh no, everything's fallen, off, and now where do I go from here? Counseling is a great thing. It's a great practice to have on a consistent basis, just to get some things off your chest, having an opportunity to vent with someone, talk with someone about those things, whether it's Christian counseling, or it may just be a really solid friend who you consider a mentor, someone that you value their opinion, who's walking closely with Jesus. Those healthy conversations help in that, right? Being able to get those things out is much better than keeping them in. Because if you constantly are putting things in the back burner, eventually that water is going to, explode. If there's something boiling, eventually is going to come to an end, right? So I think that's one thing I would say, making sure that we have a safe place, safe environment to get away, whether it's a vacation or just some downtime, a healthy conversation with a friend, counseling. All those things can certainly help. And I think, again, walking closely with Jesus is the X factor to all of this, right? I cannot operate at my best if I am not walking in the Spirit. How do I walk in the Spirit? By spending time in His Word, by praying, by seeking Him daily. If I am constantly on the go, and I don't actually ever take time to recharge with the Lord, then I'm just operating from my flesh. And when I'm operating from my flesh, I let my mind wander, I let my flesh take over, and I'm not walking in the Spirit as Jesus has called us to.
Yeah.
I think also that's where like a good community around you as well, like to help encourage you and to take your mind off those things. We
100%.
talked about DBC groups on Sunday and
Yeah.
in the Vision Cast and just how important it is. I know that
man.
there's been a ton of times where I've been like going through something horrible, but and just having a good community around me that can just sit with me in the silence if I need to, or can encourage me and say, hey, what you're thinking is not truth. Here's what Jesus actually says about you, and those kinds of things. So
That's right.
not making sure you're not doing life alone, because we're not meant to do that.
That's right. Otherwise, it would have just been Adam. God would have not ever created Eve. We need each other. We need company. We need people. And so to that, I would say it's been really neat how at DBC we've been able to provide a resource for people who go through, incredible trauma, whether that be first responders or, any sort of help that you need. We've got Reboot Trauma, and then we've also got the other one, which is first responders.
Yes.
For Reboot. So
and Reboot Combat for
that's right.
People in the military.
Military personnel, of course. And listen, I have two brothers who are in the military, and there's been many times where we'll get into a tough conversation and some of the things that they have to still work through. And there's only as far as I can take them, where they actually, I think, a little bit better equipped people is honestly a better, safer place. So we have to have, I think, all of that to try to help us cope with, I think the idea of just being able to turn it off forever. I think there's value in speaking and getting those things out. Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have Christian counseling here too that you can reach out to with ELU, and we have some
I love
partners.
ELU.
I mean, that's a great ministry
great.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about this quote that you had Sunday. The best way to understand sin is not to sin.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, so I think there's this thing that is going on in our culture where basically it says, if why don't you just try it? Just give it a chance. You don't know unless you try it. And I think that is such opposite.
Right.
That's like telling a child, touch that which is hot. We always tell our children, don't do that. It'll hurt you. I've been there. I've done that.
Right.
But the culture says, just try it. You can't knock it unless you try it. Right. So that's so opposite. That's like walking, and we're talking about light and darkness, right? Like you would never walk into a room and it be pitch black and you don't reach for that light. And so that's what happens when we sin. We go into it not really knowing what we are about to encounter. So flip the switch on so that you can see the environment rather than stumbling in the dark. And so that was from the place of what Jesus did. He was able to identify darkness. Why? Because he stayed in the light. Yeah. Right. So that was where that came from. If you want to understand the intricacies of sin, you don't go and try sin. You avoid sin and you stay in the light so that you can recognize it for what it is. Right. So
that's really good. And then you had an application that we could take away. What if you decided to honor God with your eyes just for 24 hours? And hopefully you've had a chance to do that this week. If not, let's do that now. But
listen, people sometimes will walk up and say, hey, gosh, you stepping on my toes today. Yeah. And can I just be really honest with you? My toes are way sore before they ever get to you. Like I step on my toes every single time that I preach. It's something that I'm walking through, something that I've been so mindful of this week. So for me, I was like, okay, if I can do it one day, I can do it 2 days. Right. So just this week alone, I mean, and here we are, middle of the week, and I'm going, gosh, I've really been intentional about guarding my eyes, and that's the crazy thing. I was walking through the worship center on Sunday morning, and as I'm walking through, people are on their phones or whatever, and I'm not trying to, see what everybody's looking at, but I see so many people just sliding through their phones, and it is amazing the amount of information and amount of things that we expose ourselves, sometimes even on accident, right? But the flip side of it is also true. You can avoid those things by not going to those places where, even by accident, again, I've always said, man, if you leave the door just a little bit cracked, that's an opportunity for the enemy to come in, and who knows where it would lead. And I know where it leads because I've talked to enough people throughout the years about, it all started with, and I was at I'll close with this. Walked into a prison cell one time, and I was talking to an inmate. We were there just encouraging these guys, and he had a prison sentence for life, probably a room no bigger than where we are today. And a good friend of mine asked the question, where did it all go wrong? And he could immediately identify where it all went wrong. And he said it was back in the 8th grade when I decided to take that first drink of alcohol.
Wow.
This was in relation to alcohol,
Sure.
of course. And then, of course, tragedy happened.
Wow.
He got behind the wheel. Family suffered because of the choices that he made, and he now sits behind bars thinking about what it all went wrong. And so that's why I'm so extreme on this. It's like, man, don't go there.
Yeah.
You can't avoid it.
Sure.
Do everything you can to guard your eyes, to guard your ears, guard your heart, guard your hands. So we're going to be talking through all of that. I hope it's
great.
been meaningful and helpful, and
This is great.
continue to navigate through it this week. So
That's good. Last thing I had was that you talked about is our temptation is to think that we can handle it and we can look at things that are not of God. And then you talked about how Jesus says if your eyes cause you to stumble, then pluck them out.
yeah,
was great.
I
That was
debated
great. I
about
loved
throwing
it.
that verse in there or not.
Yeah.
It's funny. I said, pluck it out. And I could hear somebody go in the audience, and I'm like, all right.
We're on the same page.
But anyways,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's an extreme statement, right? And Jesus said it. And I'm going, is that like literal? Like, is that,
Yeah.
and obviously when you understand darkness and when you understand sin the way that he did,
Yeah.
then that statement makes sense
Yeah.
because he knows how dark sin can be. And he knows how, detrimental for your family, for your kids, for who you are as a person can send you down that path. So it's like, be extreme, guarded, protected. If it's causing you to stumble, like the Apostle Paul, he steps into the pages of scripture and he says, if it causes somebody to stumble, if I eat meat, then I just won't eat meat, So he took that stance.
Right.
And he's outside of Jesus, man. I think he's one of the greatest guys in the world. And,
would agree.
back in the day, he used to pursue Christians, kill Christians, and then radically changed and saved. And so it's cool because you see the transformation of someone who was pursuing all the things that were against God to now pursuing all the things that are for God.
Great.
And one of the best missionaries that's ever lived. So,
Cassidy, what's the best way that they can stay up to date with the podcast, social media, Spotify? What would you recommend?
Yeah. All
Best
the things.
experience is what? This video?
Video,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
YouTube or Facebook is where you'll find the video. I think you can watch the video on Spotify too.
You can, yeah.
I'm an Apple Podcast user, so I don't know much about
You have to
Spotify.
color your hair
but
when you
it's
say that.
on Spotify, and just follow us on social media. Make sure you're looking out for those questions. If you want to send us any questions on Sunday after the message, and
share,
like
and
we
follow.
said at the very beginning in our intro episode, we said it wasn't always going to be on the same day. So summer
there you go.
flexibility. Thank you for sticking with us.
That's right.
More in between the week this week. But yeah,
That's good.
that's where you can find it.
Thanks for joining us. This was episode 3. We'll see you next time.